Hey, Dr. Kevin Miller at Truth Family Chiropractic. I'm going to talk about anxiety today. All right, some kids get really nervous and anxious. So if any of these things describe your child, heightened baseline anxiety, worry, or panic responses, frequent emotional meltdowns and outbursts, disrupted sleep and nightmares, appetite, losing their appetite, or overeating, increased food sensitivities or allergies, if they just swell up and their eyes get swell, closed and red, onset of headaches or body aches, overreaction to minor frustrations, poor focus and concentration troubles, frequent illness and decreased immunity, or persistent fatigue and hyperactivity. These are all signs that your child is in what we call sympathetic response. When that sympathetic response is, that means that anxiety is going to heighten. All right, so let me explain what parasympathetic and sympathetic means. Sympathetic is when you're in fight or flight or freeze. When something happens, sometimes you can't even move. Sometimes you have to run really fast to get away from it. So for example, a competition. When you're in sports and you get that anxiety, you get that nervousness, that's actually a good thing for competition. Or if you're out in the woods and the bear's chasing you and you got to run really fast to get away from it, that's going to give you a jolt of energy, sympathetic response, fight, flight, or freeze. The other one is parasympathetic. That's your rest, relax, digest, sleep. That's very healthy for you, right? So having both of those in balance is very good. But if you're sympathetic dominance and you're in fight or flight or freeze all the time, your child is going to get those anxiety symptoms. All right. So let me explain how just an analogy of how that works. So you're driving down the road on the interstate. You have a gas pedal and you have a brake. Well, what if that brake didn't work? You only had the gas pedal. There's sometimes you need that brake. All right, and that's your parasympathetic. Those kids are pedal to the metal and they have no brake. The first thing that you need to do is check for subluxation in their neck, because the parasympathetic is controlled up here by the vagus nerve. Let me grab the spine. The vagus nerve comes out right below the skull here, between the occiput C1 and C2. Vagal nerve tonicity. If it is heightened, that's going to decrease that vagus nerve function. So the vagus nerve is so important because that controls your parasympathetic function. And that travels from right up here, it goes all the way down to the gut. It stops at your heart, your lungs, your stomach, your liver, spleen, small intestine, large intestine. It goes all the way down to your large intestine. It controls a lot of stuff. And if you don't have full function of that, and that sympathetic function is dominant, guess what happens? All of those organs, they don't work right. So by adjusting that spine, getting the correction in that, it can break that sympathetic dominance in that child's spine. Okay, so that's number one. Another thing that can help is breathing. Okay, calming your child down, just having them breathe in through their nose for 4 seconds, and then exhale for 7. That breathing technique decreases the sympathetic tone in the body. Nutrition. What are your kids eating? Sugar, decrease the sugar down in their diets, increase the fats, fatty acids. Omega-3 fatty acids are wonderful to help decrease inflammation in the body. Proteins, veggies, and fruits. Okay, that's very, very simplistic. Other things that they can do is a simple stretch. Just stretching the legs out, stretching the arms out, doing a light exercise is going to help decrease that sympathetic tone. Many things, are going to cause that sympathetic stress. 4.4 million people or children in our country have anxiety. 4.4 million. That's way too many kids that should not be stressed out. That sympathetic function goes up, and parasympathetics, they get decreased. So the best thing that you can do for your child is get them checked, specific chiropractic care to get that vagal tone increased, so it balances out the sympathetic. Another type of anxiety is called generalized hyperanxiety, and that's more when kids, you think they're doing great at school. Your child may be performing at a high level, getting straight A's, doing well in sports, but they come home and they just fall apart. And they get more anxious at home, they get short fuses, you know, they go to their room, they're tired, they complain that their stomach hurts. You know, if everything on the outside, it feels like, man, they're doing really good, but inside they're not. And that's another level of anxiety. So just watch for any of those symptoms. But if your child is having any of those symptoms, make sure to get them in and get their spine checked out for those subluxations, especially in that upper cervical area, so we can break that sympathetic dominance and decrease that anxiety.